I had moved to northern Wyoming for a construction job, renting a small house on the outskirts of a quiet area. It seemed perfect for someone who didn't mind being alone. At least that's what I thought when I first signed that lease. The house itself wasn't too much to look at, just a simple 2-bedroom place. It had that feeling of an older home that had been recently renovated. It was affordable, and at that time, that's all I cared about. After long, exhausting days on the job site, I just needed a place to rejuvenate and sleep. But that never quite happened. A few times each week, I'd be jolted awake by a loud, jarring cackle. The first couple of times I assumed it was some kind of animal, maybe a coyote or some other night creature, but it always sounded as though it was right next to me, and always in my left ear. I would shoot out of bed, my heart racing, expecting to see someone standing there, but every time the room was empty. There was nothing there, no one. In fact, I never saw or heard anything else for the rest of my time in that house. I tried almost everything. I slept with calming background noise, tried relaxation exercises before bed. I even rearranged my bed, moving it to the other bedroom. But no matter what I did, that strange, almost taunting laugh would always disturb me awake. It was so vivid every time, as if something was just inside the room, crouched right at the bed beside me, cackling in my ear. I'd never had any sleep issues before, no history of nightmares, no conditions like sleep paralysis. So this was something new, something I couldn't explain, and not having decent enough sleep was taking a toll on me. By the time my contract ended, I was more relieved than I cared to admit. Now living in a different place, I've never heard that laugh again. And that's the part that still bothers me. It's not just the experience, but the fact that it's gone kind of proves to me that what I was dealing with was real. To sum it all together, I believe there was something tied to that Wyoming home, and it wanted to make me miserable, so I'd leave. My family has an old cottage in the mountains where we spend most summers. It's cozy but creepy at the same time. That summer I'd gone with my grandparents. The walls in the cottage are so thin you can hear everything. Every creak, every shuffle, every sound carries through the entire house. When my grandparents got up during the night to use the restroom, their footsteps on the stairs echoed loudly. There was never any mistaking when someone was moving around. But last summer, something happened that I still can't explain. It was close to midnight and I was downstairs in my room reading a book. The door to my bedroom was still open. The house was quiet except for the occasional pop of the old wood settling. My grandparents were upstairs, probably asleep. I was lost in my book when a soft creak near the staircase caught my attention. It sounded strange, drawn out, like someone stepping very cautiously onto the floor. My first thought was that one of my grandparents was coming downstairs, trying not to wake me had I fallen asleep. I glanced up, ready to greet them, but the staircase was empty. No movement. No one was there. Even now, writing this out gives me chills because at that moment, I didn't feel like I was alone on that main floor. I didn't see anything, but I swear I felt like I made eye contact with something when I looked up. I'm not one to scare easily, but this was different. It took every ounce of courage to get up and walk to the door to close it, and I kid you not, as soon as I turned back toward my bed, I heard 3 soft, muffled knocks. They were faint, but there was no mistaking where they came from. The door to my bedroom I had just closed, as if something was telling me it wanted in. I, being 28 years old, will admit, I threw the comforter over my head that night, plugged in my earbuds, and tried to block out every sound and possibility of seeing something. Sleep was nearly impossible after that, but I didn't dare get up again. While this isn't the first eerie experience I've had in that cottage, it's the first time it's felt so real and so close. Whatever it is, I'm starting to believe that place may have some haunted history. There's a house that I spent a good portion of my childhood in, and the house that I, to this day, will always call my true home. I've had many fond childhood memories in that house, and it's where our family lived the longest. What I'm about to describe are all real events experienced in this house by me and the rest of my family. These are true accounts and are not exaggerated in any way. We've always known that house was haunted, not to the point of being insane and deadly like you see in the movies, but plenty of unnerving things have happened there. Let me start by telling you a little bit about the house. The first thing you should know is that it's very old, from the 1800s. It used to be a hotel. When my family bought it, I, being the youngest, was only a little kid. We remodeled that house and even extended it a little. It took a very long time, but eventually that old rickety house from the 1800s got a brand new modern makeover. However, the things lingering in that house, which we couldn't see, stayed. At first, it started out with smaller things. My older brother would occasionally be falling asleep in his room upstairs, which was always very cold, and someone would blow air in his ear. He would open his eyes and look, but of course nobody would be there. We were told by a few different people that a cranky old woman used to live there. She would sit out rocking in her chair on the balcony, which we removed, yelling at people who would walk by. There was one night during which one of my older sisters was sleeping on the couch in the living room when she started to hear a creaking sound. She described it as wood, creaking rhythmically, coming from the spot just outside one of the upstairs windows, which used to be a door that led out to a balcony that no longer exists. One time when I was little, being all adventurous like I was, I took a digital camera up to the furnished attic at night, where it was quiet and pitch black. I made my way into the middle of the room, held up the camera and started snapping pictures. I could only see what I was taking pictures of when the camera would flash. Then afterwards, I would look at the picture I had taken on the digital screen. I eventually saw in one of the pictures I had taken, while I was facing the wall, a small black spot in the middle of the screen. I took another picture pointing the same way and saw that the spot was still there, but had grown. To me, it looked like some sort of portal to nothingness, a small void of blackness in the room, something that sucked up the light of the flash and didn't reflect any back. As I took more and more pictures of it, it got larger until this blackness was almost covering the entire camera lens. It then occurred to me that rather than growing, this black mass actually seemed to be getting closer and closer to my camera. I don't remember anything past that point. I must have run downstairs. Things started getting more physical. I was once in the shower when the water suddenly went cold, and I looked back to find that the knob had been turned significantly behind my back. At night, when alone, we each began to hear loud footsteps above us in the biggest room on the second floor. You would only ever hear them if you were alone or were the only one awake. Once they were so heavy, it sounded like there was an elephant or something up there, and the ceiling creaked so loud that I half expected it to cave in on me. My sisters shared that room for a long time, and eventually one of them moved out, and only one remained. When she was walking around up there, you could hear her footsteps clearly. The only problem was, I would also hear those footsteps walking around when she wasn't home. Sometimes I was even home alone. My mom was awakened one night when my friend was sleeping over to very loud footsteps running up and down the stairs. According to her, it sounded like more than one person. It was practically a stampede. She jumped out of bed angry at us being up so late, causing such a racket, opened her bedroom door into the room where you can see the bottom of the stairs, but there was only dead silence and darkness. Everything was still. She thought we must have run upstairs and had just missed us, so she went up there, opened the door to the room we were sleeping in, which was my sister's old room, now vacant after they had both moved out, but we were sound asleep. She thought maybe we were faking it and inspected us closer and realized that no, we were clearly out cold and had been that way for a while. She mentioned all of this to us the next day, maybe still wanting to think it was us, but we, of course, had no idea what she was talking about. One night, I was just about to fall asleep when I heard a man's voice right by my face whisper the word, bang. It pulled me out of my sleep, making my eyes shoot open and look around the dark room to find nothing. After a minute, still being tired, I brushed it off and closed my eyes again. I started to drift back to sleep when the voice once again quietly whispered, bang, in my face. This happened a total of 3 times before I was finally able to fall asleep. So many things happened in that house, but after so many years of almost constant activity, you get used to it, and things that used to frighten you begin to simply annoy you. Sometimes if you were alone and there was a persistent noise being made where no other person was, like that squeezing and popping sound of plastic water bottles in the kitchen, you could simply look over in that direction, say, stop it, and sometimes it would just stop. We were eventually able to get the things that were dwelling in that house out, and the activity, after years of persistence, stopped altogether. As I said earlier, I still consider that house my one and only true home, and I always will. I spent years growing up there as a child with my family and 2 of my close friends, as well as family friends. Despite the occasional paranormal activity, I have many good memories in that place. It's where my mind will always wander back to whenever I think home.